Before starting the video, I want to let y'all know that this is part of a collaboration I'm doing with AniTuber extraordinaire Tyler Doe. He's got a video on the same topic on his channel but for Killua, so be sure to check it out after you watch this one. Now, on to the video. Gon Freaks was many things. An incredible problem solver, a Nen user with a seemingly bottomless well of potential, and someone who cared a great deal for those he forged connections with. But one aspect of his personality that pervaded nearly every moment of his story was his childish nature. This childish nature of his is essential in understanding his outlook on both his personal relationships and the world around him. Meeting Kite at the beginning of the story set Gon on the trajectory he followed for the rest of his journey. Not only did Kite save Gon's life, he told him his father was still alive and expressed how much he looked up to the man that had taught him to hunt, exclaiming that he was the best and that there were no other hunters like him. He then told Gon, "Blood tells, kid, and yours speaks volumes." I believe this boosted Gon's confidence and led him to setting out on his journey. Like you said, I am his son, Jing's son. I must pass a final test to find Jing. I've never had such a challenging hunt. There's no other hunter like him. So it's about time I met him. Kite saving Gon's life and inspiring him to set out on his journey is important to keep in mind for what happens in the Chimera Ant arc. Soon after entering the first phase of the hunter exam, Gon met the young assassin that would become his closest friend, Killua. Whereas Killua started off with no sense of purpose and a belief he wasn't worthy of friendship, Gon started off with a singular goal and the ability to inadvertently create connections in pursuit of that ambition. Friendship came easily to him, and he never really gave it any thought. Throughout the story, Gon made it clear that he was easily distracted, and he often forgot about his long-term goal momentarily, letting his emotions lead his actions. I don't believe this was a conscious choice of his, but a manifestation of his kind and childish nature. Trying to rescue Killua from his family, and especially wanting to help Kurapika fight the troop, were examples of him letting his emotions lead him in the moment, putting his long-term ambition on hold. Gon was never bashful about expressing his care for his friends, especially Killua. He was a kind companion, even if he was too childish to understand the consequences of his impulsive actions. His relationship with Killua was never equal, as Killua felt indebted to him, but Gon didn't have the social experience to notice this discrepancy. He merely continued on, allowing his childish emotions and curiosity to lead his actions, often at Killua's expense. Killua's role in the relationship was to clean up Gon's messes. Another side effect of Gon's childish nature was his refusal to accept the reality of situations when they didn't favor him, and his tendency to get tunnel vision. Every time he was faced with a reality that suggested he had no choice, he'd sidestep it and create an unconventional solution by focusing solely on the task at hand and using his amazing problem-solving skills. Cheating at the end of Trick Tower to allow the entire group to pass, escaping from Nobunaga using a counterfeit technique Zeppile taught him, and giving up his arms to get a kick in while fighting Genthru, were all moments where his single-minded determination and refusal to accept the reality of his situation paid off. His outlook on the world was innocent. He believed there was no situation he couldn't get out of, and this mindset was reinforced every time things worked out for him. But then, in the Chimera Ant arc, there came a moment where those very traits would backfire and eventually lead him into despair. A situation where he couldn't sidestep the reality that faced him. When Gon saw Kite, the man that had gone from being his inspiration to his mentor, lose his arm while distracted because of him, he was engulfed in a complex torrent of emotions: rage, fear, regret, frustration, self-loathing, and in his usual childish fashion, he let his feelings consume him and prepared for battle. But for the first time, he wasn't able to express himself in the moment. Killua didn't attempt to clean up his mess after the fact. He put an end to it before it began. When Gon woke up, the emotions he'd experienced didn't vanish, he suppressed them. Because of his childish outlook, he tried to sidestep the reality facing him as he'd been able to do so many times before, and convinced himself that there was no way Kite could lose to that monster. This was where the gap between him and Killua began to form. Killua, unlike Gon, was experienced and calculating, and he knew there was a strong possibility Kite was dead. Just like Gon, he was filled with fear, self-hatred, guilt, and frustration, but he empathetically focused on Gon's well-being above his own. And sure enough, when Gon saw his inspiration and mentor's mangled body reduced to a puppet, he broke down. He didn't want to face the reality in front of him, so he tried to sidestep it again, redirecting his focus to exacting revenge and returning Kite back to normal. The emotions he'd been suppressing rose back to the surface, and only Killua understood those feelings, having gone through the same traumatic event, and having those same emotions as he fled, carrying Gon's limp body over his shoulder. In his usual fashion, Gon forgot his long-term goal and focused on the one in front of him. But instead of being driven by his usual curiosity and innocent drive to help his friends, here, he was acting out of guilt. Gon blamed himself for Kite's situation, and he felt it was his responsibility to right his own wrong. In focusing on what he alone could do to atone for his guilt, he separated himself from Killua, and the gap between them widened. Gon's outlook on the world had gone from optimistic, curious, and confident to scared, tunnel-visioned, and guilt-ridden. He didn't have the capacity to verbalize these complex and painful emotions, and neither did Killua. As Gon's mindset shifted, Killua went from trying to clean up Gon's messes to calming him down when his emotions boiled over. Gon was too focused on his objective to notice how empathetic and understanding Killua was being with him. In Gon's mind, Killua was calm and collected, whereas in reality, he was full of turmoil. Gon's new outlook was a product of his childish nature clashing with a cruel reality, a reality that he was trying his best to sidestep. As he got closer to confronting the one that had reduced his mentor to a husk of his former self, his tunnel vision became even more pronounced. His swirling emotions came closer and closer to boiling over, and finally, when he met Pitou face-to-face, they exploded. Killua attempted to fulfill the responsibility he'd taken on, trying to calm Gon down, and it sort of worked. He reminded Gon of his true goal, to save Kite, but Gon's emotions couldn't be bottled back up, and he lashed out at Killua, the one that had always been by his side. Gon's best friend became collateral to a single-minded goal driven by painful emotions. The rift between them grew wider. After being reminded of his goal, Gon funneled all of his emotions into a focused, icy fury. He became cold and calculated, putting every ounce of his focus on doing whatever was necessary to atone for his guilt. Again, he was trying to sidestep reality. After all, everything would work out if he forced that monster to heal Kite. But then, his attempt to refuse reality was crushed with a single sentence. This man is already dead. His rage, fear, regret, frustration, self-loathing, and guilt overcame him. I did this. I killed Kite. Pitou killed him, not me. Somebody help me. No, 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 no! But then, he saw another opportunity to try and sidestep reality when Pitou activated Dr. Blythe. Of course, it was a lie. He's alive. Pitou's gonna heal him after all. In the final moments before his transformation, he still refused to accept reality. When Pitou said they had to kill him, he thought to himself, kill me? You won't heal Kite? You won't even try? After all that? He took all of his emotions and funneled them into a focused rage, letting his tunnel vision and impulsiveness completely consume him, giving up everything for this momentary goal of revenge. After letting out all of his rage, grief, and frustration by repeatedly beating Pitou's bloodied corpse, Gon was left with a sober clarity, lamenting that he'd finished the enemy just as Kite had taught him. And then, he saw Killua. The guilt of remembering the hurtful words he'd spat at his best friend filled him, and he didn't even notice Pitou's reanimated corpse lunging at him. He could only look at his hands sadly, unsure of what to say to atone for the pain he'd caused the one that had never left his side. Just as Gon was about to be killed, Killua pushed him aside, and Gon's right arm was severed, just like Kite's had. Gon's clarity became resolve. He didn't want to worry Killua any more than he already had. I'm fine. It doesn't hurt. I'm not bluffing. It makes me a little happy. Finally, I can be just like Kite. In the end, I feel a little better now. And as he was about to land his final blow, Killua yelled at him not to use his power, and Gon looked back, seeing the pain he was causing his best friend, and tears filled his eyes. Gon had given up everything, and there was no conceivable way to save him, except one, and the one that had that power was Aluka. When she healed Gon, he woke up still overflowing with confusing emotions. He knew that Kite was alive, but his guilt hadn't disappeared. Jing gave him the exact advice he needed in that moment. There are rules when you apologize to friends. You promise what you'll do next time, and then you keep that promise. Whether intentionally or not, Jing helped Gon shift his perspective and do what he was used to, funneling his emotions into a goal. In his last moments with Killua, they joked around with each other, and Gon clearly felt bad for the things he'd said, apologizing profusely. After the two friends parted ways, Jing gave Gon one final piece of advice that reaffirmed his original optimistic, curious, and confident outlook on the world. What I want is always the same, something I don't have. But I'm not in any special hurry. I'm enjoying the journey. So if your destination is the same as mine, enjoy the side trips a lot. Something more important than the thing you're hunting could be right there by the side of the road. This has been Evan. Thank you for watching.